we are the first and only ton digital asset treasury strategy.
Is it going to be the only in the future as well?
No, there will be more. We welcome more. It took Saylor 5 years to basically hodl through the bear market and issue securities that none of us has even heard of before. And he's just at 3.5% of the global Bitcoin supply. We already own more ton than Michael Saylor owns Bitcoin. We'll be at 5% well before the end of the year. I don't think there will be any ecosystem that will have a digital asset treasury company that will be as dominant and hence has as big of an impact as we, VERB, will have for ton.
Manuel Stotz is a German investor based in London with a degree in economics from the London School of Economics. He began his career at AKO Capital and Taub Hodson StoneX Partners. But he wanted to build something of his own. So he founded Kingsway Capital to back frontier markets and solve real-world problems. In January 2025, he was appointed as the president of the TON Foundation and now leads a crypto fund making a massive bet on Toncoin as the backbone of a new internet economy.
Content is king, that distribution is the queen. She's wearing the pants, at least in my household. The point is Telegram's got the distribution, right? And that's just getting started.
Hello and welcome to Build It Up, where AI meets crypto, technology meets humanity, and East meets West. I'm Bill Chen. Subscribe now and be part of the conversation. My guest this week is Manuel Stotz. Manu is the founder of Kingsway Capital, an investment firm focused on emerging markets and blockchain technology. Since January 2025, he has also been the president of the TON Foundation, where he's been leading the change to grow TON's presence here in the US and around the world, helping to achieve blockchain and expand TON ecosystem. Hey Manny, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Bill. Very well. Excited to talk to you today. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you must be very busy in past 1 month, and you probably just did a PIPE, which is the largest size in this season for the DAT strategy. Can you introduce a little bit, what's the context and how you lead the whole process?
Sure. Happy to. Yeah, I've been invested in TON for now almost 4 years. Been involved in foundation since the foundation's inception, and just basically put together a digital asset treasury company, a DAT for TON, the first one, and also the biggest one, called VERB Technologies. The ticker is VERB. And we've studied all the different digital asset treasury companies. I've known Michael Saylor personally for over 4 years. I just went to his 100K party this past New Year's in Miami. And, of course, he's pioneered the segment, and credit where credit is due. What's striking about Saylor, right, if you think about it, Bitcoin's up roughly 11 times since MicroStrategy's entered, the Bitcoin standard. But MicroStrategy stock, which has outperformed NVIDIA in the AI boom, is up something like 35 times. So 2/3 of the return actually came from not the underlying spot, that was 1/3, but 2/3 came from capital allocation of the digital asset treasury strategy. And that's, of course, a significant insight. More recently, we've also studied the best performing treasury companies in the altcoin space. We particularly admire the BitMine BM&R team, and we've got some of the biggest investors in BitMine, also investors here in VERB, in TON strategies. And, they've delivered roughly a 15x over the last 45 days. That's insane. ETH has doubled, right? Great. But, this has been exceptional. They have effectively outdone Saylor at being Saylor, right? And we are following the BitMine playbook. Now, what does this mean? We just did a $558 million PIPE, which is a private investment in a public company. It was common equity. And basically infused that capital into a NASDAQ-listed company called VERB. And all the proceeds will basically be used to buy Toncoin. Now, we are here not alone. The biggest investors in the PIPE include sort of the who's who, certainly in the TON ecosystem, but really broader crypto and even fintech ecosystem. So my firm, Kingsway, was the biggest investor with over 20% of the capital. And we are followed by VY Capital. VY, you can look them up. They were pretty secretive until quite recently. They're the biggest backer of Elon. They own a big chunk of SpaceX and other companies, and they've been in TON for longer than I have been. Ribbit Capital, of course, probably needs little introduction, is a very big investor here as well, and been a long-time TON supporter and really been active in the ecosystem. And, very much sort of other, let's say, existing TON and Silicon Valley kind of folks. That's kind of the first group of investors. Now, the second group of investors include what I would call, sort of strategic, crypto investors and even DAT investors. So first and foremost, it is Graticule Gamma. which stands for Gratitude Asset Management Asia, is one of the biggest investors in BMNR as well, and run by ex-Fortress manager called Adam Levinson. Really, really strong team. But we've also got, of course, a lot of other, serious crypto investors. There's a long press release, long to name them, but also strategics. We've got, blockchain.com, of course, in there. They're a strategic partner for us here. We've got Kraken, we got Galaxy, we got Falcon X, and DCG, and many others. We also, really paid attention to the geography. So, while this is, of course, NASDAQ listed and US focused, we want investors from the Middle East, like your good self, based in Dubai or in the broader region, but also from Asia. For instance, Primitive Ventures, which is, an Asia-focused crypto fund, VC, and also, of course, the other, some of the TON-related folks like TVM Ventures, run by Steve Young, the former TON Foundation president, or Top Ventures, which is the basically venture arm of the open platform. So really, I think it's sort of the who's who. And lastly, I'll name maybe the Telegram bond investors without going to specifics, but we had a lot of interest from existing Telegram bond investors as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think pretty much, you got all the phenomenal investors globally. And my next question would be regarding differentiation, how do you compare the VERB versus the BMNR or the other token DAT strategy in the Wall Street? Because in the end of the day, it seems like everyone is competing for the attention from the investors. So what is your take on that?
Well, firstly, of course, what's really differentiated about us is that we are the first and only TON digital asset treasury strategy, right?
Is it going to be the only in the future as well?
No. There will be more. We welcome more. And having said that, we think we will remain the biggest. And I think there is a first mover advantage. And arguably what we've learned, Bill, it is a winner takes most game.
Yeah, like Tom Lee, right?
Yeah, well, Tom Lee, there's a race, right? Let me start with Saylor first, right? There is basically Saylor, Saylor and MicroStrategy has bought more Bitcoin than any other Bitcoin strategy, all the other ones combined. He's roughly 30 times bigger than the number 2 Bitcoin strategy company. And of course, it does not mean that the number 2 can't do well. MetaPlanet has proven it, best performing stock in the global stock market, of course, coming out of Japan last year. But I don't think anyone can catch up with Saylor. And the reason is there's just massive scale economies in raising capital, especially the price of the capital, which really is the name of the game, Bill, right? If you can maximize the spread between the cost of capital, which means you can raise it at a lower cost and higher price, i.e. higher multiple of NAV, and the return on capital to maximize that. And then the speed at which you can doing this is massive. Now, we also have an advantage over the Bitcoin companies, and that is not unique to us, but also, of course, includes BMNR, other Ethereum or Solana treasury companies, that we can stake. And we have, basically revenues, right? So just imagine, right? That's a scale game, right? It's almost like building an asset management business. And, in all humility, I have built a multi-billion-dollar investment management business from scratch, right? And it makes a difference if you've got 100 million under management or 10 billion. You don't have 100 times more cost, right? And if you've got 10 billion and, you get cut in half because of market movements and get cut in half again, you're still profitable, right? And so here we can stake our TON. And not only will we expect to have a balance sheet with a multiple, but also a P&L or cash flow statement with a multiple, double that, right? Now, the other difference is, as you said, like BMNR, amazing execution, but there's a race, right? There's Joe Lubin with Sharplink Gaming, SBET. There's Ether Machine. There's a lot more coming. And, we will see who will be ending up the biggest ETH treasury company. In TON, I don't expect there is no second best TON treasury company. We welcome others, but we have, high confidence they won't be able to catch up with us. I would even go further, Bill. I don't think there will be any DAT that is as dominant and as aggressive as us. It took Saylor 5 years, right, to, basically hodl through the bear market and issue securities that none of us has even heard of before, right? Perpetual preferreds and so forth, right? And he's just at 3.5% of the global Bitcoin supply. BMNR, big, how dare we, audacious go, let's get to 5% of all of ETH one day, right? We already own more TON than Michael Saylor owns Bitcoin. We'll be at 5%, well before the end of the year. We'll be the most aggressive of all the aggressive. I don't think there will be any ecosystem that will have a digital asset treasury company that will be as dominant and hence has as big of an impact as VERB will have for TON.
Awesome. Wow, that's very impressive. But how are you going to raise the capital to increase your percentage? Is it going to be ATM or, convertible bond? What's the plan for next, fundraising?
Very good question, right? We, of course, have thought about it and have got good news, right? So basically, in selecting the, NASDAQ-listed operating company that we partnered with, the most important criteria is that the company is basically ATM S3 shelf eligible. Now, what this means, right? It means that basically, not only did we close our PIPE in record time, we announced it last week, Monday, and closed within 3 days. On Friday, so in the same week of closing, we already filed for $1 billion, ATM. And what this means, it means now we can and already have been, very gently raising capital in the, U.S. equity market, selling shares as primary shares and, raising dollars every day. And those dollars can then be put to good use in buying more Toncoin. And, we basically won't stop at 1 billion. This is, the first billion is the hardest, but, we'll definitely going to keep going and really try to build a positive flywheel.
Do you consider the other approach as well, like convertible bonds, etc., or ATM is going to be your primary approach?
Well, we have all the options and thought about, the different tools, right? I think ATM is, in our judgment, likely the cheapest form of capital. And again, what we're trying to do is maximize the cost of capital and the spread between that and the return on capital, right? And the other, I think thing we have to keep in mind is that we haven't even tapped out on the common equity side, right? I mean, Saylor, of course, arguably tapped out a lot of equity investors and hence had to tap other pools of capital. We would definitely consider convertible bonds. However, we also would be very mindful of the risks, right? Charlie Munger, right? For all his, sins and not understanding crypto, he has a full of wisdom. And he said, smart young men like you and me go bust. We go bust with the 3 L's: ladies, liquor, and leverage, right? I mean,
so no leverage.
No leverage, right? Well, the point is we never want to be relying on the kindness of strangers and have a large repayment liability come due, let's say in the middle of the bear market, right? And the way to go around it is either to have no leverage, not even convertible leverage, or if you entertain convertibles, which we would, but only with what we call soft convertibles, where we have a non-mandatory conversion feature, for instance, let's say. And I think that's something what worries me about the DAT space overall. I mean, of course, we're super excited, right? But what worries me is that what the wise man does at the beginning, the fool does at the end, right? I think, if,
yes.
sort of 3 teams start wrapping coin number 75 in a NASDAQ-listed, company with leverage, I think it's going to be problematic. And I think the boom and bust cycle of crypto is not over in my mind. I almost expect the DAT phenomenon to be at the heart and center of the boom and then the potential bust of this cycle because of people getting potentially over their skis. And we're definitely not going to do that. We'll never be a forced seller. We'll run the company profitably. We have staking yield, of course, to do that. And then we'll have no hard financial leverage.
On top of that, I wonder, you talk about basically the timing is also very important. So what is your take on this bull market? And when do you think the party of the DAT play is going to be over? What kind of over is going to be like? Do you think the MNAV will be 1x or slightly under 1x? What is your take on that?
Yeah, so the first question I guess we should maybe answer is why on earth are these companies trading at a multiple like more than 1.x to start with, right?
Is this a memify value or is there some kind of specific explanation?
I think 2 reasons, right? Number one, there's probably 100 times more capital that can buy equities than can buy coins, right? Even today, and even for Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana, right? Now, whatever the number is, right? You can add probably 10 for Ton. Con is not even yet listed on the largest US spot exchanges like Coinbase or Robinhood, not even on Gemini yet. And not even also on the biggest South Korean exchange called Upbit, which is bigger than Coinbase yet, right? So I think for Tonin specifically, the first and only DAT company would deserve a bigger premium even. Now, I think the second reason is less obvious and more worth talking about and answering your question. I think what Saylor's genius really figured out is that this is a permanent capital vehicle, right? Unlike an ETF, right? If you sell the ETF sells the coin. if you sell our shares or shares in MicroStrategy, the coin stays. Now, the share can go down, but the coin stays, right? And it's a corporation that can trade at a premium or a discount to its net asset value, but then also can act on it. It can issue stock. It can buy back stock, right? It can issue other securities. It can stake. It can be included in an index. And the ETF can do none of these things, right? So I think the reality, though, is, right, capitalism is relentless. The more companies, like the longer these companies trade at a premium to book, people will create more of these companies, right? And at some point, I would expect in the next bear market, and this happened to MicroStrategy, the premiums will compress first to 1.0. In a bear market, I think all these companies could well trade at a discount, maybe even a big discount. I think MicroStrategy traded over a 30% discount in the bear market, right? But what is the problem? For our standpoint, if you have adhered to our golden rules, golden rule number 1 was no hard financial leverage. Golden rule number 2 is run it, revenues minus expenses greater than 0, run it profitably. There we have the advantage over the Bitcoin companies because we have staking yield and we have scale, right? And rule number 3, basically also maintain a healthy cash balance, right? So what happens if you're trading at a discount? You can, number 1, just write it out, right? You're profitable, you have no debt. Number 2, you could choose to, but not having to, and that's a big difference. Use some of your cash balance to buy back your stock. If you do that at a discount to NAV, you're going to grow NAV per share, which is precisely my job. Or number 3, you could even choose to, but not having to, sell some coin, especially if the underlying spot market is healthy and liquid, and use the proceeds to also buy back your stock, also at a discount, also growing book value per share. So I think already now the market is telling us, we want new original ideas, something that's differentiated, that is simple to understand, and is compelling. And I would say the first and only, the biggest TON DAT is so compelling, us, because it's differentiated. I mean, TON is differentiated because of Telegram, because it's not yet in the US. And again, it's a winner takes most game. And, there is no second best TON Treasury company. And I think, but investors are already telling us that, the market has become a lot more discerning. And I think, we've already experienced this in our fundraise, which was largely over July.
Yeah, that's a very strong pitch. And my last question would be, how about the TON ecosystem? How do you see the TON ecosystem in the next 5 years? And how do you see VERB helping to support this ecosystem, apart from support the price in a sense?
That's close. Yeah. And there's very good questions, Bill. Thank you for that. So look, I mean, the TON ecosystem is, I think very, very exciting, right? We have some superpowers, the integration with Telegram being the most important, but also the scalable architecture, which I think will, in a world of AI, will serve us in good stead. I think we expect ultimately not only hundreds of millions of humans and users on chain, but ultimately more AI agents on chain than humans. And I think TON's architecture is well suited for that. And the priorities for the TON ecosystem is for the first time properly entering the United States market, right? And of course, the listings on spot exchanges are a key part of this. VERB is going to play its big role because this is the only way now for US investors, whether institutional or retail, to get access to basically TON and, by extension, the growth of and dynamism of Telegram. And also the wallet went live in the US last month. There's, more stablecoins coming. Stablecoins probably is worth talking about for a bit. TON so far has only Tether and then launched Ethena and launched FDUSD. But you can expect a lot more stablecoins coming, right? It wouldn't be shocking I won't name any names, but, there's I think a huge opportunity for stablecoins for TON, right? And you can see that also driving the Ethereum narrative, right? Now, this is money math, Bill, but let me explain it anyway, right? Just imagine $1,000, right? $1,000 in your bank account, on average, across the demographic of the Telegram user base. There's some very rich people on Telegram, some not so rich people on Telegram. But imagine $1,000, right, in your checking account. If every Telegram user had $1,000 in your, in the Telegram TON stablecoin, it would be $1 trillion AUM business. 3% net interest margin, $15 billion of cash flow a year. Even if half of that goes to Telegram, which it probably would, Coinbase Circle, there's $15 billion to go. So, maybe there's a $100 billion, a $500 billion company, right? And so you can see the possibilities are endless. And I would also be remiss not to talk about the wonderful worlds of, digital property rights, whether that's, NFTs, Telegram gifts, but also gaming. Content is king, but distribution is the queen. She's wearing the pants, at least in my household. The point is Telegram's got the distribution, right? And you've seen already the organic volume of Telegram gifts, sort of on a good day overtake everything that's happening on Solana or Ethereum in NFTs. And that's just getting started.
Well, that's very well said. I really like your analogy. Content is the king, but distribution is the queen. I think that worked for most of the business.
Correct. Yeah, certainly. I mean, of course, with your background, you might also be familiar with WeChat, right?
Yes.
I mean, in the West, WeChat is not well known and, of course, not used. But, how did Tencent become Asia's most valuable corporation with $1 trillion peak market cap? Well, you had WeChat in the middle, right? The messenger first. But it really became a super app. And we don't have yet super apps in the West, right? I know Elon is trying to do that with X, but, I think Telegram with Ton is in a pole position, right? Imagine not only your messenger, but also now all your financial applications, right? Whether that's, your checking bank account, your, money market funds like dollar with a yield, but also payments and peer-to-peer and remittances and so forth. But then also all the other stuff, right? I mean, in WeChat, you have your Uber, your Spotify, your Amazon inside the app, and the gaming, right? And I think this is really where we are scratching the surface, basically, having a global, quasi-decentralized WeChat with, Telegram at the center and Ton as the main blockchain layer. That's the goal.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's pretty much for today. And thank you, Manny, again for your insightful sharing, and enjoy the bull market.
Well, we're trying our best. We are so grateful, Bill, for your partnership. I know you've been a longtime supporter of Ton and having me on here now at this exciting moment when VERB is launched. The ticker is VERB on NASDAQ, and we look forward to basically driving shareholder value and working for all the investors. Very excited to be partners and look forward to being on again if you have me. Really appreciate the time.
Yeah, all the best to VERB. Cheers.
Thank you.
Well, that's all for today on Build It Up. We will be back next week with another inspiring guest. Subscribe now so you will never miss our amazing interviews. Until next time, this is Bill. Goodbye and take care.